difficulties with the camera.
To debate our keynote topic, is Islam a religion of peace? Shadid will begin with 15 minutes to argue in the affirmative. Shadid?
Greetings to you all. Muslims in the audience, Assalamu alaikum. In the name of Allah, most beneficent, most merciful. We're here to discuss the topic, is Islam a religion of peace? What is the meaning of peace? According to the dictionary, the meaning of peace is a state of tranquility or quiet, freedom from civil disturbance, a state of security or order within a community provided for by law or custom, freedom from disquieting or oppressive thoughts or emotions, harmony in personal relations, a state or period of mutual concord between governments, a pact or agreement to end hostilities between those who have been at war or in a state of enmity. Keep these definitions in mind as I proceed to make my case to answer the question, is Islam a religion of peace? Now today we heard many things from many of the earlier speakers that I would say were outright incorrect about Islam. If, according to one of the earlier speakers, that Islam is the Boston bombing and 9/11 and Bali, can I then say that America is the Gulf War, the invasion of Panama, where 3,000 people, innocent Panamanian civilians were killed? Can I then say that this is representative of America? Can I say that America is the invasion of Grenada, Laos, Cambodia, Vietnam, Korea, World War I and II, the Civil War, Jim Crow segregation? Can I say this is representative of America, that America is not a nation of peace? Because for almost just about every decade, there's some type of war era, there's some war going on. If you would say no, then of course, then you cannot try to categorize Islam by these incidents. Furthermore, we're here to talk about the question, is Islam a religion of peace? However, when we look at our own nation, and I'm all for defense spending, I believe every nation has a right to defend itself. But did you know that the United States alone counts for over 2/5 or just under half of the world's spending on military expenditures? No Arab country or no Middle Eastern country even comes close to that budget. Did you know that the United States alone has a military budget of $806 billion that we spend toward war expenditures and things of this nature? Did you know that if you compare the countries that are considered the axis of evil, which would be Iran, Iraq, Libya, Syria, North Korea, they have a combined military spending of only $15 billion. So we hear the question, about the threat of Islam, the internal threat, the outside threat. If they even had such an idea, they wouldn't have the money or the budget to even try to mount such a war against you. They would run out of money, and the United States would still have plenty of money to go forward in military expenditures. But we're here to talk about Islam, right? So, again, recall the definition that I gave you of the meaning of peace. One of the meanings was a state of tranquility or quiet. Islam does indeed offer spiritual peace. For example, in the Quran, chapter 13, verse 28, it says, and also we heard this earlier, Al talked about the relationship in Islam that Allah, He has love, but, He's not your friend, and you can't have this personal type of relationship. Well, look what the Quran says. The Quran says, those who believe and whose hearts are set at rest or peace by the remembrance of Allah. Now surely by Allah's remembrance are the hearts set at peace and rest. The Quran tells us in chapter 2, verse 45, seek help in patience and prayer. Truly it is hard, save for the humble-minded. Seeking help in patience and prayer. When times are tough, like now, with our economy. Islam says turn to God, and you will find rest in God, and God will help you in your struggles. Quran says in chapter 76, verse 26, and a part of the night prostrate yourselves to Him and glorify Him a long night, through prayer through the night. This is definitely speaking of a spiritual peace and gaining a closeness or relationship with God. But of course, I know most people are not interested in that. You want to know about the war and the violence, right? So let's get to it. What are Islamic teachings on peaceful relations with others? Now, before I get into it, so that all the things that I say are not thrown to the side and my speech is in vain, let me deal with a couple of issues. Number one, we heard Mr. Thomas speak about taqiyya, claiming that there is this so-called doctrine of deception that Muslims are allowed to lie if it helps Islam. I'll quote my opponent. He says, speaking in a video to Nabil Qureshi, he says, the doctrine of deception, or doctrine of deceiving unbelievers, making them think Islam teaches, or that Muslims in any particular situation believe something other than what they really believe. This is my opponent, Robert Spencer. The fact is, there is no such teaching. Islam does not teach that you can lie to promote Islam. I hope you hear this. That is a complete lie itself. Islam does not teach that you can lie to promote Islam. What is taqiyya? Matter of fact, although I don't have my, like the other also have my books outside, I'll do a small plug. I do have a video that I produced. You can get it on Amazon. It's called Taqiyya. What does it mean and how it has been used to, misused to demonize Muslims? You find it on Amazon, all right? Unfortunately, I didn't bring your copies today. But just so you don't want to take my word for it, what does the teaching of Islam say? Literally, taqiyya means to safeguard or to defend yourself in fear. Okay? It is said that al-taqiyya with the tongue is with the tongue only. He who has been coerced into saying which angers Allah. In other words, taqiyya is a concept when a Muslim's life is in immediate danger. Let's say there's a persecution going on and there's some random killers hunting Muslims down. And so a guy comes to me and I say, oh, I take my hat off, put it away. We're killing Muslims. What are you? Are you a Muslim, Shadid? I'll kill you right now if you say yes. I say, no, I'm not a Muslim. So that way he doesn't kill me. It's not to promote Islam. In fact, if taqiyya has to be active, a person would not even mention Islam. But this is only when you're in immediate danger, and as it says, when one is coerced. Okay? And many of the scholars say this. Okay? For example, we have from Sunan al-Bahaqi, Ibn Abbas, says that, referring to one of the verses that supposedly mentions taqiyya, he says, anyone who after accepting faith in Allah utters unbelief, those who have been coerced, and as such uttered with their tongues that which their hearts did not confirm. This is what it is. It is not in a regular situation like right now. Nobody's threatening me. Nobody has said they're going to kill me if I don't say what Islam teaches. No, it is when your life is in immediate danger. Okay? Hopefully everyone understands. If not, let me give you a better example. Everyone watched, may be familiar with Grey's Anatomy, right? The doctor show. There was an episode where there was a killer going through the hospital and he was killing people, but he was only killing surgeons. If you were a nurse or a pediatrician, he would leave you alone. So he goes into one of the rooms and there's two surgeons, one hiding under the bed, one in the closet. Maybe you've seen the episode. So he finds the one in the closet and he says, what are you? The guy says, I'm a surgeon. He said, please, but don't shoot me. And he shot him. So he finds the other one under the bed. He drags her from under the bed. And he says, what are you? Are you a surgeon? She said, no, I'm a nurse. He said, okay. And he walked away and let her go, and he kept on looking for surgeons. That would be an example of taqiyya, where her life was in danger, so she said, look, I'm not a surgeon, so he wouldn't kill her. It's not lying about Islam to cover up something. That would be such a foolish teaching. Anyone could just read, oh, you just lied to me, sir. Here's what it says in Quran or whatever. So no, there's no such teaching. Okay? And again, if I need to go further, I can give you more. Well, let's get to the next thing. The next thing that was mentioned earlier was the abrogation. They claim that all the peaceful verses have been abrogated. This is an incorrect position. Yes, there are some scholars who claim that, but these scholars are incorrect, and I can name you the scholars who tell them they're wrong. Number one, first of all, in order for them to be, and the verses to be abrogated, you need proof. You can't just say, oh, it's abrogated because I feel like it. There has to be proof for abrogation. Either Allah has to say that a particular, but don't give me something general that speaks of the idea of abrogation. definition. No. In order to say a verse has been abrogated, you need direct proof. In other words, you need a statement that clearly says, this verse has been abrogated by this verse. And you will not find that concerning the verses that I'm going to mention, which we call the verses that demonstrate peace. Here's what some of the scholars say. In the book Science of Quran by Ahmed Ben Defman, he says that still others hold that there are no genuine reports available on the issue that go back to the Prophet. In other words, Muhammad, there's no statement from Muhammad, but he can say, where you can quote that he says, yes, all the peaceful verses have been abrogated, or this verse has been abrogated by this other verse, canceling out the verses of peace. Okay? Some of the scholars, Imam Tabari.
5 minutes, Shadid.
Okay. Imam Tabari says that this idea that the opinion that the kindness was abrogated by later Quranic statements make no sense. So let's get to the heart of the matter. Okay? What about everyday peaceful relations with Muslims? With others. The Quran says in chapter 60, verse 8, that Allah does not forbid you being good or kind to those who have not fought you because of your religion or driven you from your homes, or from being just towards them. Allah loves those who are just. Quran chapter 5, verse 8. It says, O you who believe, stand out firmly for Allah as witnesses to fair dealing, and let not the hatred of others towards you make you swerve to wrong and depart from justice. Be just, that is next to piety, and fear Allah, for Allah is well acquainted with what you do. We heard the verse about the friends. Well, that's really not a good translation, because the word there is not friends. The word there actually is wali. The correct translation is don't take them as your guardians or protectors. As Mustafa mentioned earlier, the Quran actually puts a condition. It says it is against those who fight you that you should not take as friends. The Quran clarifies that. And this is actually the correct interpretation of the Quran. The scholars of the interpretation of the Quran say that the best interpretation of the Quran is to use the Quran to interpret itself. In other words, use other verses to interpret other verses. Regardless of what some outside, regardless of the opinion of a scholar, the best translation of the Quran or interpretation is to use other verses of the Quran to interpret, and that's what Brother Mustafa did earlier. The Quran clarifies what it means by don't take as guardians protected. It is referring to those who are being hostile towards you, who are trying to fight you. Okay? Are the Muslims commanded to make unending war on unbelievers? The Quran in chapter 2 verse 190 says, and fight in the way of Allah against those who fight against you, but be not aggressive. Surely Allah loves not the aggressors. We have a hadith in Bukhari where the Prophet is said to say, do not wish to meet the enemy. However, if you do face the enemy, be patient. He's telling the believers, don't wish for fights, don't wish for war. And again, remember, these verses have not been abrogated. The Quran talks about fighting for a just cause. It says, and why should you not fight in the cause of Allah, and for those who lack power and are being oppressed? Men, women, and children whose cry is, our Lord, rescue us from this place whose people are oppressors, and raise for us from you one who will protect, and raise from us one who will help. The Quran also further clarifies, to those against whom war is made, permission is given to fight. Well, everybody agrees with that, right? In the United States. If our country is attacked, don't we agree that we have the right to fight back and defend ourselves? Well, this is what the Quran says. These are the conditions in which Quran talks about fighting and war and things of this nature. I have more verses, but for the sake of time, let's go on to the next. Do you know that Islam permits peace treaties? Remember the definition of peace was what? Peace agreements between governments to end war or mutual agreement to end enmity. Well, the Quran agrees, Islam agrees with that. We have Ibn Jarir at-Tabari writes in his book of Jihad, he says, Muslim jurists agreed unanimously that the Messenger of Allah made peace with the polytheists of the Quraysh. And by the way, peace does not mean that you are in subjection. Peace does not mean that you have to subject yourself to some humiliating concepts or that you have to pay the jizya. In fact, the scholars say that on the day of Hudaybiyah, that the Prophet concluded a peace treaty with the polytheists on the day of Hudaybiyah without them having to pay to him a tribute or a tax.
1 minute.
Okay? Thus they say that the Messenger of Allah did not find fault with peace agreements. So it's clear that Islam indeed is a religion of peace. Not passivity now. But peace, these are clearly peaceful injunctions, you must agree. Okay? So as I said, remember again that these peaceful verses have not been abrogated. I'm sure that's going to be brought up, but I can bring more and more scholars who clearly will make the case that the idea that the peaceful verses have been abrogated is the wrong opinion. Okay? And again, Muhammad never said it. Allah never said the peaceful verses are abrogated at all. Okay? So, as I read to you, these are the verses that we see that clearly enjoin peace, peaceful relations with non-Muslims, that there are clearly verses that when it's peace of fighting in a just cause, against oppression, when you've been attacked, against wrong, people who are oppressing other people who are trying to oppress you. These are the reasons. And as we go on, I'll even bring you some more opinions from scholars that indeed make the case.
Thank you, Shadid. You can have a seat.